Spirituality. In our day and age, everyone talks about spirituality. People even say, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, meaning I have a spiritual life, I pray, I think spiritual life is important, I understand the idea of the spiritual aspect, but I don't go to church, I don't belong to any religious organization. In the other churches, the Protestant and the Catholic, each has a different spirituality. And the spirituality of the church, is like the blood of the organism, the blood that pumps through the veins. The way that you are in your spiritual life is going to be directly an effect or response to to the church that you're in, the Orthodox Church, whether it be the Coptic or the Catholic or the Protestant Church. It's going to be a direct response to this. Even it's going to affect everything, right? The way that we read the Bible, the way that we look to our other fellow human being, the way that we look to God and our relationship with God, it affects everything. And just because we say we believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they say they believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, doesn't mean everyone is the same. There's a very much a different atmosphere and a different spirituality in the Orthodox Church. A good way to identify this spirituality is from the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. It was written in Luke chapter 10, verse 33 to 35, that there was an individual coming down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and as he was coming to Jericho, he fell among thieves, who beat him up and robbed him and left him, to die on the side of the road. And then it says, finally, a priest passed by and others passed by and nobody wanted to touch him. But then a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, and gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. St. John Chrysostom has a beautiful homily or a beautiful, meditation on this. And he immediately, we get the idea of what the church is. He says here, and this is what's so beautiful, he says that the church, first off, the Good Samaritan is Christ. The Good Samaritan is Christ. He comes to cure the wounded man, and then he leaves him in the inn. And the inn is the church, which is a hospital. When we have this idea of the hospital, the church as a hospital, we immediately begin to understand the difference between the spirituality of our church and other churches. Right? A hospital is much different from a place where I'm going to just get re-energized, or a place where I'm going to meet my other friends, a place that I'm going to hear good stuff about God, listen to beautiful chanting. No, the church as the hospital is taken from this Good Samaritan. For those of you that just came in, we're talking about the difference in the spirituality in the Orthodox Church as from the other churches, the church maybe of the Protestants and the Catholics, our idea. And this is not to say that you can't find this in the other church, but for us it's one of the main images. So when the Good Samaritan comes and he takes this wounded individual and brings him to the inn, it is Christ who is bringing us to the church. And it says that he bandaged up his wounds, poured oil, which St. John Chrysostom says the oil is like good words, and the wine is like harsh words. Pouring alcohol on a cut is, very painful. So the idea is that he heals us by using both treatments, both the good words and the harsh words, that which he needs, which we need. And then St. John Chrysostom, I don't know how he got this, but he says the innkeeper is the Apostle Paul. I think because St. John Chrysostom loved St. Paul so much and loved all of his epistles and loved his writings, he's saying that St. Paul is the one who can, through his writings, help and nurture somebody to become a strong Christian. And so there might be another reason. St. Paul was in charge of the Gentiles, right? St. Peter went to the Jews, St. Paul went to the Gentiles. And so this might be the other reason that St. Paul was looked at as the innkeeper, because he was taking care of the Gentile people during his service. For those of you that just came in, we're talking about the differences between the Orthodox spirituality and the spirituality of other churches. And we're beginning the conversation by speaking about the parable of the Good Samaritan. And from the parable of the Good Samaritan, we find that the church is for us the hospital, that Christ brings all those who are wounded by sin to be rehabilitated. What's important about this is because we come to church, oftentimes we come to church with the wrong mentality. We come to church first with a mentality, something along the lines of, I'm doing this for my own spiritual life. This is what I have to do, right? It's a very individualistic idea. When we come with the idea of it being a hospital, we are caring more about those who are around us, not just about ourselves personally, right? I walk into hospitals either to give communion or visit people, and if I hear somebody screaming in pain out of a room, I can't help but care about that person and feel that, this person needs help from above as well. The problem is, you go to a hospital and somebody screams in pain and you have compassion. But you come to church and you find somebody that's a sinner, and we don't have the same compassion that you would of a sick person in a hospital room. And that's the problem, is that we're not really thinking about the church as a hospital. Oftentimes we have people say, people that go to church are hypocrites. Everyone's a hypocrite. One time I said to somebody, and this was something I heard other people say, so I used it. I said, well, if everybody in the church is a hypocrite, you'll fit right in. Come on. So the idea is that so what? Okay, people are hypocrites. We're all sinners, and everybody has their different sins that they're coming to church, and hopefully one day they'll be healed of these sins. I can't tell you how many people, will say a bad word or curse somebody out, and then they'll confess, and then they'll do it again, and they'll confess. And they have sins that are recurring and chronic in their lives, but they're trying desperately. And this kind of leads us to the second image, that the church is looking at the body and soul of the individual, and the body and soul of the individual as being one. So if the body and soul are one, who are the doctors? The doctors become the priests. And the priests who are looking after the soul more importantly than the body. We have psychologists and psychiatrists, and the word psyche, which you take for psychiatry or psychology, is the word for soul, psyche, right? We know that word, psychiatric, psyche. This word, psyche, which is attributed to the soul, right, is the job of the priest to make sure that your soul is in the right way. There's something going on that it's not dangerous. Psychiatrists, they just want to make sure you're not going to kill somebody else, or you can kind of work in society, and of course, they have their tools and they have their ways of treating people, but the person who's concerned with the soul becomes the church and the priest. In a very real way, the church and the priest are concerned with the soul. And they're not in conflict. It doesn't have to be in conflict. What the world has is very important, but what the church has is a different element. The church is looking to return our soul back to what it was supposed to be like in paradise, This is the thieves, right? When we say that this man was going from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, St. John Chrysostom says it was in the garden that man was overcome by the devil. And these are the thieves who left him to die, robbed him, and left him to die. We come and we want to have our soul return to that place. But in order for our soul to return to that place, we have to take care of our passions which are within us. The passions we have are just coming with our fallen nature. Before we had passions too. In the garden we had passions as well. And one father wrote about how the passions were used to kind of look after virtue and desire virtue and run after virtue, and the ideas of all of this was that we were supposed to use our passions in a good way to draw us closer to God. But instead of maybe, for example, using anger against the evil one, and anger against sin, and anger against unrighteousness and injustice in the world, I use anger against my brother. I use anger against my sister. Just like Cain killed his brother Abel. Right? He had this passion within us, and instead of using it in the right way, he uses it in the wrong way. Our passions are all screwed up within us, and our passions are what basically manifest themselves in our bodies. So you could use the word, and that becomes sin. So we use the word passion to describe the movement of the soul within you, right? And then sin is the manifestation of that passion. Right? I'll say that again. The passion within you is, for example, if I desire to steal something, that's a passion within me, maybe connected with greed, and then the actual stealing becomes the sin. So the passions are where we kind of hold it off, and we kind of want to, sort of control the passions like a bottleneck, right? Right at the bottleneck, right at the neck is where you can stop the passion, but once it goes through and it opens up, it becomes much more difficult to stop. In law, there was always this question: when does an attempted crime, when does a crime, when can you say that the crime is being attempted, right? When can you say the crime is being attempted? Like, for example, you have murder and you have attempted murder. If I have in my mind the idea to murder somebody, and that person is standing over there, and there's, let's say I take one of these metal symbols and I use it and then this is how I'm going to do this, right? So is it when I take one step over this way, or is it when I take the symbol in my hand, or is it when I start walking, if I'm halfway there, right? These are kind of things that we talk about, or what lawyers talk about. The idea is, when does an attempt become a real attempt? You can prove it's an attempt. The same thing is true. Why is this true? Because a person who's standing here, think about this example, it's easier for me to stop it now, right? But the second I start taking and put the plan into motion, it becomes harder to turn back for other reasons: embarrassment, commitment. I just said I'm going to do it. It becomes difficult. I think in these mass shootings, there's always a point where that person can say, I'm not going to go forward, but they end up doing it because, whether they're sitting in their car, there's the gun, there's whatever it is, and they just keep going forward. The same is actually true with our minds. Every sin starts as a thought in our mind and can be destroyed quickly and easily there. I mean, if, let's say, when I'm talking to the young boys who are dealing with whether it be sins of pornography or whatever, it's easier to fight it here than after you have images upon images in front of you to fight the sin. Right? So it's always about stopping the sin here. And this is what's important. This is what I'm getting at in terms of our spirituality, is that the church, in all that the church does for us, the things that we complain about, things we think, long services, the Agbeya, praying my psalms, doing prostrations, fasting, whatever it is, all these things that people tend to kind of lament as part of their religious experience, all of this is the medicine of the soul that's being used to heal our passions. Because again, our spirituality is that we should be whole, full, complete, as God created us. Now there's one major aspect, probably the most major of all the aspects, the central aspect of our spirituality, which sets us off from the others, is that our goal and our drive is to be united with Christ. This is different from, let's say, a Protestant mentality, which all I have to do is believe intellectually and I'm saved. For us, it's a belief and then a life that follows. And the life that follows, that is my working towards salvation, is destroying the passions and drawing closer to God. Destroying the passions and destroying the passion and drawing closer to God. All the tools that we have in the church are meant for this purpose. It's one thing for us to come to church 5 minutes before communion and take communion, which is just terrible. Terrible not because it's a bad thing to do, but terrible because you're not really going to, you haven't prepared yourself enough to receive the body and blood of Christ. And that preparation is extremely important because it's going to affect you when you leave the church. It's a simple saying, easy come, easy go, right? Easy come, easy go. If I can take and obtain anything easily, then I can lose it just as easily, and my feelings are going to be the same. You know, I was a little bit happy because, and I always liken it to, going to McDonald's and getting something within 3 minutes, or going to a sit-down restaurant, looking over the menu, thinking about what you want, sending the order in, waiting for the chef to cook it, waiting for it to come back. The anticipation is important. We're human beings. And so much of what we have in our religious life here is preparation and fulfillment. And this goes to the heart of our idea in our church, that we are to be united with Christ. So I've done this before, but just for purposes of review, going through the sacraments to identify how this is the case. So when we start with baptism, we receive the Holy Spirit through baptism and chrismation. Very simple. The two sacraments that we have in that room back there. Baptism and the anointing of holy oil. And then in the service on our baptism day, we partake of the body and blood of Christ. So we could say 3 sacraments. But when I partake of when I am baptized, too often the mistake is that I think that I'm receiving a product. I now have the Holy Spirit in me, like I have this phone in my pocket. I've received the product. Now we have to kind of correct this mistaken view. It's not receiving a product, but it's God sharing His life with us. God is sharing His Spirit. He's putting it into us. And we've made promises, and from those promises we are going to receive the blessings of the promises that God has made to us. We make promises, He makes promises, and we live our life accordingly. Now, because I received the Holy Spirit, why don't I just walk out the back door and never come back? I've received the Holy Spirit. Because again, it's not a commodity, it's not a product, but I come and then I continue always to partake of the body and blood of Jesus Christ, uniting myself not only to Him, but to the church, which is His body, as St. Paul writes about. Christ as the head of the church, both in Colossians and Ephesians, he speaks about Christ being the head and also the body. And so with this understanding, I understand myself to always be striving towards perfecting my union with Him. I can't do everything. God, of course, fulfills my lacking. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be perfection in the sense that I have to reach the level of St. Mary or else it's not going to be good enough. Each of us are able to receive and to do and to act according to the blessings that we've been given, our capabilities. But the thing is that we don't take advantage of this because we've been sometimes tricked into thinking, I just need to do the minimum. It's not a day-to-day practice. It's not a daily practice. It's not something that is supposed to take all this time, effort, and energy. That's where we kind of lose our way, and we start doing what is minimal, and then we start losing the idea of what it means to be spiritual in the church. How many times do we get up for prayer and we say, "Oh, I just don't want to pray"? How many times we're about ready to go to sleep and we're just like, I can't put two words together? Or how many times we wake up on Sunday morning and be like, 3 hours. Or, and then we go to, we're getting into close to Holy Week. Holy Week with all of its issues and time commitments and all of the Good Friday, you're here from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. if you do the whole service. It's tough, right? But the idea of being spiritual means I have to fight against my desire, my will, my body, what I can or what I want to do, That's really where we are brought into this world self-centered. And the Orthodox faith is trying to flip that so that we're not self-centered but Christ-centered. And Christ-centered every day of the week. But we can't be Christ-centered without Christ being himself constantly uniting himself, and without the power of the Holy Spirit, and without the services, or we could say the tools, the treatments that the church gives us. There's no other way to get to where we need to go. And then, you say, okay, why? Why do I need to do all of this? Well, you can see also in the Orthodox Church the product of this spirituality. We had a few weeks ago, 40 days ago, around that time, the martyrdom of the 21 in Libya. And just today we had the story of the 40 saints of Sebaste. We're talking in the year 330 AD, 40 soldiers of the Roman government were tortured by being put into an icy river or icy lake in Armenia. And then, they were smashed, their legs were smashed with sledgehammers, and then they were burned in fire. This was 330 years ago. Now, in 2015, you have men, still Christians, able to do this great act of martyrdom, able to stand up to evil, able to give their life. This is the effect of that spirituality, where we're able to not be self-centered and save our own necks, but Christ-centered and willing to shed our blood for Christ. This is the product of the spirituality of our church. And not just that. When we look to the lives of the saints that have come out of this church, one author, as I was researching all this, one author set out to kind of say, look, these are the saints of our church. These are the holy men of our church that have come out of this tradition. Where are the holy people of the other churches? And I know it sounds really harsh. We shouldn't judge. We shouldn't look at that. We shouldn't say things about that. But when you want to see the product, you go to a university, you send your kid to Harvard. You want to see what the graduates of Harvard, what they're doing with their life, right? I'm sending my kid to kindergarten or first grade next year, right? I want to see where these kids in his school in 8th grade and whatever, I know it's crazy, but I want to see where these kids went. Is this a school that's producing educated children that could go on to the next level? We do this in our day-to-day, right? If I go into a hospital, I want to know that the patients are coming out, right? So this is the kind of the same scrutiny that we put on normal, companies and whatever, is the same scrutiny that we're saying, do your research, look at the church, and you see. Our church, our motto, the Orthodox Church's motto, is never a sales pitch about, hey, we have this and we have that and whatever. It's 3 words: come and see. Come and see. See the church, see the services, see the people, and you judge. You judge us by who we are. And you start to learn the history, and you start to learn who we were and what we were able to accomplish through this spiritual life. One beautiful story of a martyr, as he's being killed, the executioner is asking him, why are you still following your Savior, Jesus Christ? And he was able to say, before he died, he said, I am able at this moment, through Christ, to love you even though you're about to kill me. This is the power beyond understanding that we find in the spiritual life. Just as Christ on the cross said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they are doing," we see Saint Stephen saying the same words in Acts chapter 7, and then you see this martyr, a couple hundred years later, saying the same exact words. This is the power of the union with us and Christ, what we're able to accomplish. We're not able to accomplish anything on our own. If we become and we look to this world, to be our home and the place where we find comfort, and the place where we want not only to find comfort but to enjoy our life, we will ultimately suffer. And I mean that in the real sense of the word, suffer, because nothing in this world will satisfy. Nothing. You can have a good steak dinner. You could have, people who choose to do drugs. You can have anything that you think is going to serve your pleasure, your fancy, and after a few hours, it will be nothing. Everything. The nice, beautiful house becomes old over time, right? The nice, beautiful car becomes old over time. Nothing. Even you live in paradise, you start to feel like... And I lived in Hawaii for 10 months. Living in Hawaii was beautiful first month, second month. Afterwards, it's just like, Hawaii, right? But it didn't have that same attraction. Nothing in this world satisfies. But now, if we go and decide that our kingdom is there and not here, and if we decide to live by the Spirit, and if we decide to be committed to this union with God, I will suffer in this world for sure, but the suffering is different. The suffering is a joyful suffering. The suffering is of course I'm suffering in this world because this is not my home. And I never am going to commit to this place. And this place is never going to understand me. This place is never going to accept me. Because I'm not of the world. I'm in the world, but not of the world, just as Christ was in the world, but not of the world. And he said to us, they hated me, they're going to hate you. Okay. So I'm going to have to go through a little bit of suffering in this world for the sake of Jesus Christ. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The spirituality that we have in our church is not a message of, pray really hard, come to church, do all that's upon you, and God is going to give you the best life possible. No, not at all. Not at all. That's not even close. We look to the cross and we say, that's what we have in store, the cross. But after the cross, we know that there's the resurrection. And so we're very matter of fact when it comes to suffering. People are like, why are they doing this to Coptic Christians in Egypt? Well, we know this is our life. And it does, even if they were to kill every single one of us, we're not scared. We're not going to change our attitude. We're not going to change our thought process. We're not like, let me tell you, we're not like a group of indigenous people, where they're like worried that the last of these people are going to die and then it's going to be forgotten. No, we're not like that at all. I mean, people think about this in terms of the slaughter of all the American Indians, or people on a certain island. They have these, the indigenous people, and they're killing them, and so they worry about the culture, they worry about the history. We don't worry about the culture, history. We're here to die for the sake of Christ. We're here to be witnesses to Him, no matter what the cost is. This sense of spirituality comes from our idea and not just our idea, our confidence in our union with Him. So people say, can I be confident of my salvation in the Orthodox Church? Yes. But not in the confidence in the sense like I can, do whatever I want and I can leave the faith, or I can stop doing Christian works. No, I'm confident in the fact that I do what is upon me, and every time I fall short, I repent and start again, start new. Then my confidence is in the grace of God. My confidence is in Him. This is the boldness and confidence that we read about in the book of Hebrews. The confidence to come before the throne of grace. But that confidence is not again something that's going to change me from my direction. We speak a lot in our Orthodox Church about repentance. Repentance is change, metania, always changing, never staying the same. We can never stay the same in our spiritual life. We always have to change for the better. And in the kingdom of heaven, our understanding, our belief is that we will also be constantly changing, because God is infinity and we're always going to be in progress towards Him. Infinity is infinity, right? And in that progress, that'll take eternity, right? That's the life. It's not going to be the same thing all the time, right? And that's what sometimes we think heaven is going to have to be, it's probably going to be boring after the first 1,000,000 years, right? It's going to be the same. No, it's always going to be going from glory to glory in the presence of God. And our union will become more and more. What you find in the other churches is a more intellectual, rational idea of faith, idea of spirituality, of trying to prove things. You know, how does the body change or the bread change into the body of Christ? How exactly is the presence of the saint in the icon? What exactly happens when I do the sign of the cross? You know, all of these types of questions come to mind, and we don't go into the mysteries so much to describe them. The mysteries meaning the things that are indescribable. The Holy Trinity is a mystery. You know, Christ's incarnation is in fact a mystery. Yes, He was a real human being. If we had a camera, we could have taken a picture of Him. But the idea of God coming down to earth is unfathomable. This idea is beyond us. And so there are mysteries in our church, but I want to say, what I want to get to, it's more of faith, of the heart. And the faith is, yes, I have to believe with my mind, but a faith is also, maybe I can't explain things, I can't explain theology, but I know. The same attitude that I have, whether it be towards my mother or towards my wife or towards my children, I know that I love my mom, I know I love my wife, I know I love my children. I can't explain it. I can't put it in a formula, right? But it's a feeling of the heart with the mind together. Yes, I see and I comprehend actions and attitudes, but also of the heart. That even if my son is mad at me, I still love him. And how much does that give me in terms of my relationship with God, right? I understand that God's love for me is an everlasting love, right? And so I want to be in that love all the time. And so we see that the Orthodox Church is very practical in its spirituality. In fact, from all the reading that I've done over these years, I see that the Orthodox Church, it has almost, you can say, a manual of how to approach certain sins and how to heal certain sins through the spiritual practices. When people come to me for confession, I say all I have is the Bible, prayer, and church. I won't have much more than that to help you. And when I say the church, I mean the fasting and the laws of the church and the coming to the services. These three. Of course, there are extremes. There are things that you need medicine, and there are things that there needs to be other, therapy for. But the therapy that we give you, or that the church has here, is full. And it is something that can be given to children from a young age, from a very young age, teaching them various things. And so what I'm saying is that there's this whole arsenal, because the Orthodox Church knows the soul and has learned and studied the soul over so many centuries. And it's not even trial and error. I think now in our day and age, we just have lost touch with our spiritual side. Humanity wants to be very carnal, very physical, very much superficial and sensory, and doesn't go for the deeper part of the soul. And that's what happens in so many relationships and in so many problems that we have going on in the church, is that nobody knows, or the people that are involved in these catastrophes don't know their soul and don't know the effect that they're having on the souls of others. And so, kind of to conclude this, the main issue here that we're talking about is all the practices of the Orthodox Church are geared towards healing the soul and making the soul united with the body in service to God. The soul can't go in one direction and the body in another. I can't be, prayerful but also living in sin over here. And I can't be, perfect in my bodily actions but completely, have no relationship with God. I need both of those to be united. And as that is put together, the body and the soul together, then I am struggling in my life with these two being united to unite myself with God. So I'm not completely scattered in different areas and kind of confused. I'm very much oriented on this path. And when I know myself, I'm able to repent. When I'm able to kind of bring these two together, which is a big struggle, but it's not a struggle that's going to be the rest of your life. It's a struggle for a short time. And then when I go on that path towards union with Christ, every step of the way I'm taking guide of a spiritual father. I didn't emphasize this here, but a spiritual father or even a spiritual mother is essential for every person. A spiritual father is not someone to say your sins are forgiven and then you can go your way. He's someone that helps you to pray, someone who helps you to do acts of kindness and mercy. Somebody who helps you to be a Christian in your life. You can't just everybody come and become a priest or a monk or a bishop. You can't just live in the church. Everybody has lives, but in those lives you have to struggle to become Christian in every aspect. So as the Orthodox Church gathers our mind and body together and looks at both. I just another real quick comment. You notice so much that we do is bodily in this church. The fasting, the prostrations, the eating, the smelling, the drinking, everything is very physical. I can see icons, I can touch. It's all of that is very much because we in the Orthodox Church understand the body. The altar, everything is physical. We're not just in this kind of spiritual way of life. Very physical and spiritual and both connected together. And then the church is seeking to guide you on this path towards union with God. I've spoken about very lofty things, but it's just supposed to be a taste and a touch to give you an idea of the mentality and the psychology of the church. I actually have a book, and I should give it to you. I have a book called Orthodox Psychotherapy, written by a monk, Metropolitan, he's a bishop, Metropolitan Hierotheos Vlachos. It's a very large book, but it really goes into depth about these issues. Any questions? All right, let's stand up for prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Make us, O Lord, worthy to pray thankfully and say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses. Go in peace, the peace of the Lord be with you all. Today, I believe, is Abuna Gorgios' around this time, his ordination anniversary. How many years? No. He was in the 80s. Yeah, well, I think it's in the 20s, the high 20s. Really? I thought it was in there. No. It's maybe 30s. All right. Yeah, say something. Congratulations.
Nice to hear you yesterday. What time you start?